Hello, 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 everyone. So, we are once again at that time, at that place, this particular little space and time amongst all reality. It is time for another episode of Let's Read Syrupleaf live. Today we have. I don't think I'm going to wait for anyone to show up. So, remind this is 1, 2, 3, 4, year 5. Year 5. The Rule of Jazzimus Prime. Getting groovy is the right of all sentient beings. That's a terrible Optimus Prime. Hello, Audacity, are you updating? Yes, you are. Okay. Syrupleaf, Chapter 5, Prologue, 15th of Galena, 141. And so, life continues as it has for the last 20 years here at Talabord. No other dwarf ever stepped forward to take charge of the fortress after my original year of command, although a few dwarves had talked as though they might do so. All of that seems so long ago now. I, Jazzimus, remain in charge here, and it is a good thing for every dwarf that I have. Talabord may now be the most successful fortress in the history of dwarvendom. I order our legendary clothier to make me a full set of adamantine clothes to go with the adamantine armor and adamantine mining pick that I have commissioned for myself. We have so much adamantine to spare now that I decide I might as well forego my usual austerity and start to enjoy life a little bit. The weather here is uncomfortably hot during this season, but the adamantine clothing I've just commissioned should alleviate that somewhat once it's ready. In the meantime, I decided I will cool off by enjoying a new drink, recently invented by one of our legendary brewers. My advisor pours some of the new dwarven whiskey, then mixes in some dwarven syrup and crushes some imported valley herb into the mixture. I take the dwarven mint julep to my outdoor hammock, just outside the protective walls of Talabord, and relax. It's quieter out here, and there is no real threat nearby anymore. Our legendary hunters are just that good. The drink and the cool breeze alleviate the oppressive heat somewhat. I drift off into a nap as the whiskey from the dwarven julep courses through my veins. I begin to dream about the situation at Talabord. What could be left for our great fortress to accomplish? I drift off into a nap as the whiskey from the dwarven julep courses through my veins. I begin to dream about the situation at Talabord. What could be left for our great fortress to accomplish? Ah, hello, villain us. Welcome to the stream. Good to have you here. Yes, this is a unusual time. I got good recording time unusually early, so I'm welcome to see a new crowd around. I hope you enjoy the show of me just kind of derping my way through this. I dream of the great dwarven superconstructions that Talabord will soon undertake. There are dreams of great dams crossing mighty rivers, dreams of pyramids larger than those ever seen before, dreams of steel and glass constructions that are so tall that the dwarves refer to them as skyscrapers. There are dreams of not only striking the earth, but of changing the earth in ways no dwarf could have ever foreseen. And then the Earth seems to fight back? It seems almost as though the Earth itself is angry at our dwarven meddling. Skyscrapers and pyramids fall to the ground as the Earth in its fury begins to shake, shake, shake. I awaken from my outdoor slumber to find that a dwarf I've never met is shaking my shoulder. My lord, I'm sorry to awake you. You've done such a wonderful job here at Talabord that the mountain homes have asked that you help a struggling colony become more established, he says. I awaken groggily. Yeah, yeah, so where are we going? Well, it's south of here, he says nervously. Okay. Let's go then, I say, half awake, as he leads me away from the richest citadel known to dwarven kind. As I groggily follow him southward while the town guard changes shifts, I think I hear a distant voice scream, "Hey! Wait! Who are you, and where are you taking Jazzimus?" Not being entirely awake yet, however, I can't be sure that I heard it. Hmm? I dazedly mutter. I think that was a bear. We should get away from here as fast as we can. By the way, name's Pumping Glemma, he says as he grabs my wrist and breaks off into a run. Haha. Well, a long-time watcher since Boat Murdered, you say? I I recently watched through some of Boat Murdered, and yeah, I can definitely tell that I've been improving my quality a little bit over time. If nothing else, I have better equipment now. So, thank you for sticking through me through all the early lumps and bumps. And hello, 12th Century Fox. Lovely to have you here. As always. All right. Syrupleaf, Chapter 5, Prologue Part 2. Before long, Pumping Glemma and I are deep into the jungle, out of the range of the guards of Talabord. I don't think I really know how to get back from here anyway. I should have studied the maps of our great Talabord cartographers better. I'm at the mercy of this strange dwarf who's effectively kidnapped me. So, tell me about this place we're going and why it's so important, I say. Syrupleaf is a promising new dwarven colony just south of here, in need of a leader of your caliber, Pumping Glemma says. So, why does it need an established leader so urgently? Back at Talabord, we have many knowledgeable and powerful dwarves and nearly limitless resources, including adamantine. Couldn't we go back there so that we can bring some of these things where they're so needed, I ask? I go on to describe our recent discoveries and new technologies, which have not yet been shared with any other towns except for our nearest dwarven neighbors. Well, I think it's best at this point that we not go back to Talabord, he says. Why is this so urgent? I ask. Well, have you heard the story of Head Shoots and Holistic Detective? I had not. I listen in ever-growing horror as he relates the tale. I wish I'd brought some adamantine with me. Yes, yes. Oh, you've been here for a long time, 12th Century Fox? I don't think I remember you back in the days of, like, Boat Murdered, Head Shoots, and Regrowth. Did you have a different name back then? Several days later, the heat begins to become unbearable. I hate this heat, I tell Pumping Lemma. How much longer is it? It's still a ways south of here. I wonder how bad the heat will be at this Syrupleaf place. After a few weeks of travel, the heat and the humidity were nearly too much for me, but Pumping Lemma convinced me to After a few weeks, the heat and the humidity were nearly too much for me, but Pumping Lemma convinced me to persevere, against my better judgment. A few days later, the heat was not quite as bad as it has been. Are we there yet? I asked Pumping Lemma. We're getting closer. It's still a little way south of here, he said. Getting closer. Didn't tell me much. Finally, we arrive at a large dwarven fortress in a hillside in the jungle. So, this is Syrupleaf, is it? I asked. No, actually, this is Clapcraft. Syrupleaf is, well, it's still a little way south of here. We're meeting up with the rest of the caravan here and loading up with supplies for the rest of the journey. Damn, how long was this journey going to take? At least for that night, I'm able to sleep on a comfortable wooden bed for the first time in almost a month. The next morning, I walk down the stairs to the main room of the inn. Pumping Lemma is already waiting there with a group of unfamiliar dwarves. Introductions are made all around. We had Pumping Lemma the pump operator, Tissid the weaver, Callisti the peasant, Drassarin the woodworker, Glob of Glob the siege operator, Tinny Turtler the carpenter, Syntax the wrestler, Green Intern the metal crafter, Out of Print the peasant, Recursive the peasant, Alias the trapper, Mailman the glassmaker, Tower of Oil the crossbow maker, White Cloak the fishery worker, Smuggins the fishery worker, Bobbin Threadbare, the jeweler, and Manuel Calavera, the bone carver. In addition, there's one exceptional dwarf who seems to carry himself with an air of nobility. He introduces himself as Frederick, the dungeon master, and explains that he's gathered this ragged band of migrants to make their way to Syrupleaf, and is now willing to follow my lead. I take Frederick aside and ask if he would be willing to lead the fortress in the event that I should change my mind about commanding what will almost certainly prove to be dubious bolt hole far from my home. He nods grimly. We enjoy a home-cooked meal for what may prove to be the last time in a while, and our fellowship of 19 dwarves journeys onwards. Yeah, makes you wonder who hired Pumping Lemma to snipe Jazzimus. Good, this is a long prologue, too. Syrupleaf, Chapter 5, Prologue, Part 3, 23rd of Timber, 141. After a couple more months of travel, the weather has cooled off a bit. As we set up camp late that night, I noticed that the stars overhead are not as I remember them. What happened to the stars I used to know? I asked Frederick. I believe we've crossed well into the southern hemisphere. The stars are different here. It's kind of a long story. I'll explain it during tomorrow's journey. At least the temperature is comfortable. We've been foraging for food, which is abundant here, to refill our supplies. So it's kind of nice here. I think I might just like this Syrupleaf place. Are we almost there yet? I ask. Pumping Lemma is the one who knows where we're going. Hey, Pumping Lemma, how much farther? Calls out Frederick. We're more than halfway there, Pumping Lemma replies nervously. We're more than halfway, Pumping Lemma replies nervously. Nah, I got it wrong twice and it's already read. 21st of Opal, 141. We're now in a trackless white land. Over the last couple of months of travel, the weather has gone from pleasant to cool and pleasant. We're now in a trackless white land. Over the last couple of months of travel, the weather has gone from pleasant to cool and pleasant, to cool and damp, to chilly, to cold, to this. What the hell is this cold white stuff all over the ground? I grumble. You mean the snow? Replies Alias. What the hell is snow? I ask. It's this white stuff on the ground. This is what rain becomes when the weather is this cold. This is such bullshit, I mutter under my breath. 14th of Obsidian, 141. After a few more weeks of travel, it's even colder than it was before, if such a thing is possible. The ground has become hard and slippery. Alias says that we're walking on what he calls a glacier. I would write more in this journal, but my hands are getting numb. 29th of Obsidian, 141. Our supplies are exhausted. We had to slaughter and eat most of our pack animals. Pumping Lemma claims that he can see the spire of the mountain of Syrupleaf in the distance, and that we should be able to reach it in a couple more days. Can't see a damn thing myself except for a bunch of this snow blowing all over everywhere. Alias helpfully describes the weather as a blizzard. We don't have this blizzard shit back in the jungle. I might be hallucinating, but I think we've arrived at our destination. We make a beeline for the fortress entrance to We make a beeline for the fortress entrance, too cold and miserable to wonder why the hell anyone would have established a fortress here. Idles wrote, date unknown, 140. Diary of the Miner, Idles Work Reigns. It'll be a nice place, they said. Staggering mineral wealth, they said. Lots of work for a strong young miner, they said. They could have at least mentioned that the fortress, if you could call it that, was buried under a league of ice, and leagues from nowhere. Fortress recruiters be damned. Still, not a half-bad adventure. At least their last claim was correct. Plenty of mining to be done in this place. Their manager, Skullbuggy, gave me a month-long work order as soon as I stepped in the gate. Maybe I'll find something good buried under these frozen wastes. Break's over. Back to digging. Date unknown, year 140. Diary of the Miner, Idles Work Reigns. I'm beginning to think that my family name wasn't just plucked from the air. The mining team is working triple shifts. We've got to finish these utility tunnels soon. You see, the genius who decided to settle here didn't bother to check for the presence of farmable muck or liquid water. The brook is frozen through year round, and all the earth in this place is dry and icy. It's a good thing one of our exploratory shafts struck some warm rock damn me if I can't even remember how long ago that was. Must have been digging for weeks. We're still not done. The plan is to divert magma near the brook to melt it, then divert the meltwater back towards the fortress. I don't know if I can take the pressure. The whole fortress is waiting for the completion of this work. Gods, and those things outside. If thirst and starvation do not kill us, those things certainly will. I've not yet seen them, but they make enough noise that if I press my ears to the rock, I can hear them. Now's the time I'm glad for the work of a miner. I'm as far from those things as you can get in this place. Break's over. Date unknown, 141. Diary of the miner idles work reigns. Thank the gods for the blood of the earth. The plan worked. We thawed just enough of the brook to supply a well and a few large farm plots. And now we have working magma furnaces. When I came up to make that first report of flowing water, some dwarven lass I'd never seen before nearly removed my beard with her affections. Apologies. When I came up to make that first report of flowing water, some dwarven lass I'd never seen before nearly removed my beard with her affections. Alas, a miner's work is never done. In other news, those beasts grew tired of beating on our gates and left. I feel like a weight has been lifted from my shoulders, although the things will surely be back. They've probably just gone to hunt some of the woolly mammoths that roam nearby to sate their bloodthirst. Ugh. Just thinking of the things gives me the willies. Someone needs to come up with a plan for dealing with those things. Everyone knows that they'll return sooner or later. And what does our overseer do? I'm instructed to excavate one of the most elaborate, undwarvenly jails that I've ever seen. The plan showed that the cells will house beds. Beds! It wasn't even until last month that I was assigned a proper bedroom. He's setting himself up as sheriff. He's setting himself up as the sheriff once his term as leader is over. Back to digging. Date unknown, 142. Diary of the miner idle's work reigns. One of the other miners brought down word that Jazzimus Prime, a new overseer, has arrived, as well as the dungeon master in a large caravan. More work from those two, I'm sure. Perhaps I'll be recalled from my current task. We've extended a passageway above and across the bottomless chasm, searching for mineral wealth on the far side. I was promoted for my find of bituminous coal. Steel shall now be plentiful in our fortress with the supply of coke. We shall no longer have to burn imported wood. As much as I yearn for the chance to find even more precious deposits, this part of the fortress is very trying on my nerves. Endless tunnels crisscrossing each other like a maze. The screeches of Batman and the grunts of troglodytes pierce the thin walls near the chasm. They chill my bones almost as badly as those fiends beyond the gates. Perhaps our new leader will decide on a plan to deal with those spawn of holistic as they become called. What a thrill it would be to dig out the instrument of their destruction. Perhaps I will be relocated from this part of the fortress. I can hope. Yeah. Well, I mean, the peanut gallery has been moderately color so far. There was some pretty good. I think that I really didn't like 64-bit robots here, despite him being a fellow robot. But some of the artwork in there was damn great. Mm. Pardon. Syrupleaf, Chapter 5, Part 1, The Arrival. I realize that this is no dream, no hallucination. Our company has finally arrived at this icy hell of a fortress. I'm met at the gate by Mayor Bob III and the fortress manager Skullbuggy. Jazzimus, I presume, says Skullbuggy. Jazzimus, I presume, says Skullbuggy. I am he, I reply. You're not a moment too soon. The previous overseer has been incapacitated by a broken leg and is unable to continue his duties. All of our dwarves are currently busy with other tasks, so it would be appreciated if you could see to it that he receives water and food. 64-bit robot's left upper leg has been moderately injured. Do you have any other advice to deal with the situation here? I ask. We'll need a stronger army to deal with the spawn of Holistic, and these soldiers will need to be outfitted. The steel weapon and armor industries must be a priority in order to outfit a larger army, says Skullbuggy. We have very little wood, but coal and coke are abundant here, so please use those instead of charcoal for steel making. And try to import as much wood as you're able. Also, as a general rule, try to keep most of the dwarves inside of the fortress at all times. There isn't anything outside that would make it worth the danger. Thank you, I reply. I turn to Bob III. Do you have anything to add to that? If you could find a way to capture one of the holistic spawn and domesticate it, I would like to have one as a pet, says Bob III. I stare at Bob incredulously. Or, failing that, could you at least commission a bismuth bronze drinking cup for me, perhaps? It would really mean a lot to me. Sure, I'll get right on that, I think to myself. After seeing to the previous overseer, 64-bit robot, I get to work on the steel industry. We have plenty of coal, lignite, and flux stone already, but we'll need to mine out more iron. I order the miners Rixison, Sewermancer, Manic Mole, Idols, and the Deadly Hume to get to work extracting hematite and limatite ore from the mines. Mayor Bob III, a legendary miner in his own right, grabs a pick as well and begins unearthing iron ore at alarming speed. Perhaps this dwarf is capable of more than just making ridiculous requests after all. I take Green Intern aside and request that he go ahead and forge the bismuth bronze. Goblet that Bob has requested. To run an efficient fortress, one must keep the more useful dwarves happy. As for our existing supply of steel bars, it's time that we use them for something. I see that Vox Nihili, our legendary armorsmith, is preparing a new plot of farmland. I order him to stop farming and to focus on the production of steel armor. This request immediately pays off, as Vox Nihili begins churning out several masterpiece quality suits of steel plate mail. Unfortunately, without Vox Nihili, our farming industry is now shorthanded. Mehuyael, one of our more skilled farmers, had been ordered not to farm by the previous overseer. I request that he complete the construction of another farm plot, which will be used to plant quarry bushes. Those who aren't hauling iron I am off tonight. Those who aren't hauling iron ore, working in the steel industry, or working on the farms are put to work smoothing and engraving the walls and floors of the fortress. By making this miserable place seem as pleasant as possible, I hope to keep the dwarves in relatively high spirits. I notice that the peasants, Callisti, Out of Print, and Recursive, have to resort to sleeping on the cavern floor. There are not enough beds for all the dwarves, and there's no more wood remaining to build any more beds. I hope that the annual elven caravan arrives soon to supply us with wood, as there are no trees growing anywhere on this glacier. Here, the following annotation has been scribbled into the margin of the journal. Little did I know that we would receive the wood that we needed soon enough, but at what cost? Bobbin Threadbare wrote, "The journey itself was not without its perils. No such passage is, of course, and certainly not one to a fortress known most for its inhospitable surroundings. The occasional appearance of mysteriously displaced sand raiders did little to warm my feelings towards my surroundings, although the near future would cause me to feel comforted whenever they appeared around Syrupleaf. After all, when they are the explanation for why the warning bell sounds, it means that they are not the ones surrounding our feeble defenses. Upon my initial arrival, I discovered, much to my satisfaction, that I would be permitted to retain my current profession. Not every dwarf in my immigrant group was so lucky, after all. Indeed, I was filled with optimism these first few weeks. One dwarf who was my senior in the fortress told me of the dire issues of water and food shortages, and of their initially desperate need for wood. Thankfully, however, most of these issues have been resolved before I entered the gates of Syrupleaf, with a slow trickle of water feeding the muddy mushroom grounds, while I had to pass by a massive stockpile of wood gathered from caravans as I crossed the anteroom into the forest proper. It would not be until their first appearance that I would come to understand the hell to which I had consigned myself. Yeah, this is considered update 2. How long is this? Let's see if I... Prologue part 2, the arrival part 2. Yeah, we're like maybe a quarter of the way through. Goodness, this is a long one. I love it. Syrupleaf, Chapter 5, Part 2, Luigi's Tragedy. 11th of Granite, 142. An elven caravan from Idala Araf has arrived. Only a couple of days later, the elven caravan arrives, carrying with it some much-needed supplies of wood. An ambush! Curse them! From my vantage point on the mountain peaks, I see that they're immediately set upon by a band of sand raiders who'd been waiting in ambush for them. I suppose this is part of the reason why Skullbuggy had said that dwarves should always stay inside. I tell Drakenel, standing beside me, to prepare the military to defend the fortress. He nods and rushes off to the barracks. Two of the elf merchants and a pack mule are quickly slaughtered by the sand raiders, while their elven comrades flee. The raiders turn their sights to the elven merchants' intended destination, the front gates of Syrupleaf. As the sand raiders close in on the fortress, a fully armed and armored Luigi's Discount emerges from the gates, her newborn daughter, Flat Banana, in tow. The remaining dwarven warriors are nowhere to be seen. Charging through the snow are a large sand raider wielding an axe, two raider wrestlers, and two raider bowmen. Luigi's Discount faces them alone, holding her sword at the ready. Luigi's Discount turns to face the leader. She chops off his right arm and leg, then smashes him with the flat of her sword, knocking him unconscious against a wall. Then, while turning to face the other raiders, she's struck in the abdomen by an arrow, piercing her organs. She grits her teeth and fights through the terrible pain, engaging two nearby wrestlers. Where are our other warriors? Why have they not arrived yet? Fighting like a dwarf possessed, Luigi's Discount severs both the arms of one of the wrestlers, who collapses in pain. She grimaces as another shot from a raider bow hits her squarely in the shoulder, while she turns to face the last wrestler. From the shadows, another raider leaps at Luigi's Discount. She leaps forward in an attempt to dodge, but she can feel that her backpack has been knocked off of her by an attacker. The raider from the shadows grabs something off the ground and sprints away, while Luigi's Discount slices the remaining wrestler in half with her sword. She then charges the two sand raider bowmen, ignoring the pain as yet another arrow strikes her in the leg. She swiftly chops off the legs of one of the bowmen, while the other one flees. With the sand raiders defeated, Luigi's Discount gathers her wits and takes stock of the situation. Something of hers was stolen during the fight. The sand raider from the shadows knocked something off of her back and ran away with it during the chaos of the battle. Flat Banana. No! Luigi's Discount looks all around, but the raider thief, Flat Banana's kidnapper, has vanished into the trackless blizzard. Furiously, Luigi's Discount charges off into the blizzard, hoping against hope for any sign of the Snatcher. She sees a dark shape in the distance and immediately rushes towards it. Alas, it's not the Sand Raider kidnapper. It's only the Batman Zatamgaz, It is only the Batman Zatamgaz, a creature that has irritated the It is only the Batman Zatamgaz, a creature that has irritated the residents of Syrupleaf since its founding 5 years ago, but who presents no real threat. In her frustration, In her frustration, In her frustration, she smashes the creature with the flat of her sword. Zatamgatiz's body is sent flying through the frozen air and explodes into gore against the side of the glacier. Solemnly, she returns to her guard post as the other warriors finally emerge from the fortress gates, although she herself wears a stoic expression utterly devoid of emotion. I can't help but allow a tear to escape from my own eyes. Flat Banana, infant daughter of Luigi's Discount, has been kidnapped by the Sand Raiders. Skullbuggy wrote, Entry 1, Granite, 5th year. Some migrant dwarf just staggered in here damn near frozen to death. Of course, Bob the Third dragged me along to greet him, which at first I declined, but somebody's got to get in the welcome wagon. Jazzimus, his name is. Nice enough guy so far. He's not used to the weather yet, it seems, but in due time he'll be quite comfortable. Among the... Got distracted by chat. He's not used to the weather yet, it seems, but in due time he'll be quite comfortable among the cold stone walls of proud Udibgovos. I can't remember a time where I thought it sane to wear but one layer of clothing. Oh, and I caught one of the miners scribbling in a hastily made notebook. Looks like they haven't been working them hard enough down there. Yeah, well, it's kind of the paradox of action scenes, you know? You have to balance the energy that they demand with your own capability of actually providing it. It doesn't help when they throw in a dwarven word like Zatamgatiz in the middle of it, though. Entry 11. Granite, 5th year. Entry 11. Granite, 5th year. I didn't think Sand Raiders would come this far north, but maybe I'm not as learned as I assumed that I was. Luigi's Discount walked by, and I noticed that her child wasn't in her arms, as was the usual case. It turns out, unfortunately, that the Sand Raiders, may Armak damn them forever, had kidnapped the child. Needless to say, I tripped over my words, and all I could say was that I was so sorry. I didn't think I made her feel better, though. I'm never good with words. Tassid wrote, 1st of Granite, 142. Why on earth did I come here? The road here was long, hard, and so very, very cold. Armak be damned, this is a true hell. We arrived at Syrupleaf under the guide of a dwarf by the name of Jazzimus. His confidence wavered during the trip here, and I didn't by any means blame him. To be told you'll be overseer of a fortress is an honor, but I'll be damned if I wanted to take on this mess. Nothing is done, it's cold, and apparently we're always being watched. I'm told never to go outside. Why would I want to? 11th of Granite, 142. Today I awoke to news of a caravan arriving. The smiles on all of my fellow dwarves was enough to take my mind off this bitter place for just a moment. The caravan never came. After waiting for a few hours, I spoke to a dwarf named Vox Nihili. He was feverishly working on some brilliant-looking armor. He told me of Sand Raiders, who of which had attacked us not hours earlier. They took a young one, an only child. This truly is a hell. I now hope one of these armor sets is for me. I pray that this is the last we'll see of the Sand Raiders, but I doubt it. Vox Nihili tells me that this is not the first attack on Syrupleaf. I fear for my life. I want to go home. Maybe I'll make a shirt to occupy my time. Yep, drink is here. Not beer this time, just water. The tipsy stream last night was, that was perhaps a bad idea. Syrupleaf, Chapter 5, Part 3. The Copper and the Kern. 12th of Granite, 142. I order the dwarves to bring the wood left by the fallen elves into the fortress. As the haulers march to the scene of the battle, a giant cave swallow swoops from the sky to threaten them. Idols brandishes his mining pick at the beast menacingly, and it flies away. 25th of Granite, 142. The situation has settled down a bit. Our scouts report that there do not appear to be any more sand raiders in the immediate area. Our steelmaking industry continues to operate at peak efficiency. Our steelmaking industry continues to operate at peak efficiency. While hunting mammoths out on the glacier, Idea Keeper is assaulted by an old enemy of Syrupleaf, the Batman Lekocob. Idea's skills with the crossbow are formidable, however. She fires a crossbow bolt directly into Lekokob's face, and the battle is quickly over. 26th of Slate, 142. The situation outdoors has been fairly quiet for over a month now. I decide to head to the front gates and take a look outside the fortress myself. I walk past the Craftsdwarf workshops in the central chamber of the fortress. Gerblin and Kurish have stacked dozens upon dozens of masterpiece crafts outside of their respective workshops. Walking out the front passageway, I pass Heliturtle, who's smoothing the last few rough areas of the floors and walls of the passage. I walk around the area outside the fortress. Soon after, I discover an exposed vein of copper ore only a few hundred yards from the entrance. I decide to take a chance that the outdoor situation will remain under control for a few more weeks and order the vein mined out. Second of Fellsite, 142. The outdoor mining is complete, and I order a group of dwarves to haul the copper into the fortress near the smelters. All of the haulers dutifully fill their mining carts with copper nuggets and roll the carts into the fortress. All of the haulers, except for one, that is. The mason Sirocco sits down in the snow, staring intently at the freshly mined copper nuggets, lost in thought. I call to him, but can't get his attention. Eventually, I walk over to him and ask him if anything is wrong. He looks up to me for a moment, but says nothing. Then, with a faraway look in his eyes, he proceeds to roll his mining cart slowly into the fortress. I follow him, watching from a distance. Passing through the gatehouse, he grabs a piece of the elven wood and tosses it into his mining cart. He continues rolling the cart down the entrance hallway and then stops in the main chamber. He should be bringing the cart to the smelters where it belongs. What's he doing, I wonder? Sirocco picks up a large chunk of obsidian off the ground and places it into his cart, and then he rolls it into a mason's workshop, locking the door behind him. I walk to the smelters, where the rest of the ore has been taken. I see that we've stockpiled a large quantity of ore, and we cannot seem to smelt it fast enough. I order the construction of 6 additional magma smelters, and request that several idle dwarves, including the White Crane, Callisti, and Goosekrieg, begin operating the new furnaces. Skullbuggy also volunteers to work the furnaces in his spare time. 9th of Fellsite, 142. Item is placed. Gerblin creates a masterpiece. Kurish creates a masterpiece. What? Sirocco has been taken by a Fey Mood. Sirocco has claimed a mason's workshop. Oh god, this is awful. Can I zoom in on this? Is this just... No, this is just compression of the screenshot. This isn't my screen that's making it so garbled. This is just how it's posted. Okay. Matt Kunst, the head of sects, an obsidian quern. This is an obsidian quern. All craftsdwarfship is of the highest quality. This object menaces with spikes of cedar. On the item is an image of a jaguar in obsidian. On the item is an image of a full moon in native copper. A week later, Sirocco emerges from his workshop, proudly carrying a great obsidian quern, studded with designs carved from copper nuggets. It is certainly a thing of beauty, although several dwarves grumble that the artifact is useless. I do not agree with them, for we can certainly put this to use when the cave wheat harvest comes. The elite wrestler Lackloss informs me that he suffered a severe back injury while training. He's still able to fight, but now has great difficulty lifting the sort of heavy weights typical for dwarven strength training. As it appears that he is permanently unable to train further, I grant Lackloss a couple of weeks off duty to rest, after which he will be stationed to guard the front gates of Syrupleaf. First of Hematite, 142. Summer, or at least what passes for such a thing in this desolate place, has arrived. There have been no signs yet of the fabled spawn of Holistic, but Skullbuggy assures me it's only a matter of time. Out of Print wrote, "From the pen on Out of Print. Dearest Mistum, I miss you more than my dwarven heart can bear. Every day I'm without you is darker than the day before. Syrupleaf is an unforgiving place. Season after season we're besieged by things best left unspoken. The creeping cold permeates through the fort, bringing ill tidings and new challenges with each passing month. Still, things are getting better. We have booze now, and water. Our clothing industry is among the finest in the world, as you can see from the enclosed mittens I bought for you, and steel production is reaching a fevered pitch. I'm proud to be here, lending my hand at taming this cruel and wild place. My only wish is that I were here with you. P.S. Having my own bed would be nice too." I really like the narrative being built up around the fort. There's a sense of looming dread I haven't seen in any other DFLP. So far, I know I'll be eating these words within 2 overseers tops. It seems a little less over the top than head shoots, which is kind of refreshing. Screaming Idiot wrote, "From the writings of Pump Operator Screaming Idiot, Operator of Pumps. Entry 1. The glory of operating the pumps. Some folks will say that a fortress is founded upon the backs of its miners. Others say that it's the overseer's guidance. Most would say it's the brewers, and I'm hard-pressed to disagree. Some fools would claim it's the military. But they're all wrong, they are. Nay, the true heart of the fortress is its pump operators. We brave souls operate the delicate mechanisms and make the fortress work. You need water for your farm? Bam! Old Screamy's got you covered, he does. Got some malformed beastie outside giving you a sword boy some trouble? Oh, not a problem. I grab the crank, give it a yank, and flood the whole bloody thing with lava. Your wife's not producing children for you like you want. Well, I can pump more than lava and water if you know what I mean. All joking aside, the true heart of the fortress is its pump operators. Without us operating the pumps, why, where would we be? Up Shite Creek without someone to pump the boat dry, that's where you'd be. Besides, what's a heart do? Pumps blood. So, my metaphor be accurate as accurate can be, so all your snobby sword boys can take their shiny steel toys and ram them right up where the sun don't shine, which for us dwarves can be practically any orifice, so I ain't real choosy like. The Journal of Sirocco, first entry. Hey, diary, I can't afford to buy a journal, so I'm just going to go ahead and engrave my thoughts on the fortress walls. No peeking, guys. I mean it. This is private. So, where was I, diary? Oh yeah, Syrupleaf. I love this place so much. The ice, the snow, the musical screams of the eternally damned. Oh, it just speaks to me in a way that's just so yeah. Yeah, you know? The others say they can't stand the cold, of course. The unreliable sources of food and water, the threat of death at every corner, the constant labor for little material reward, and a million other little fussy-wussy little things that I can't remember. But you know what, diary? You know what? They just can't appreciate the natural wonder that surrounds them. That's what. You've got to seize the day. Did I just lounge around and mope the day my father, mother, and 3 brothers were dragged into the lake by a small sturgeon? Oh, not me. I engraved pictures of it all over the mountain home until they got fed up and sent me to this place. They said I was upsetting people. And now I'm here. Beautiful Syrupleaf, a cozy little castle nestled in the icy bosom of the frost-beaten wastes. So inspiring! I try to tell people how wonderful it is living here, but they just give me these weird looks. What's that all about, diary? Huh? I don't think they like me very much. They didn't even want to have a beetle drive. But, oh, never mind those party poopers. I can have fun all by myself, can't I, diary? So, yeah, I made a Kern today. Jazzimus, that's the new guy. He's got a funny beard. He said he likes the jaguar, and I didn't tell him it was supposed to be a mountain lion. Don't tell anyone, diary. That would be too embarrassing. I also drew a square, but I forgot to include the corners, so I said it was the full moon. I think he believed me. Well, that's all I gotta say for now, diary. I've got some home sweet home wall hangings to put around the place. It's gonna be so darling. Bye, diary. Hold on a second. I think I need to wash the sugar out of my mouth now. Mm. Dear Lord. On the one hand, I can't believe I got that in one take. On the other, I think I needed to get that in one take because I'd never be able to come back to that one. Does Sirocco have a year of his own? Good God. Skullbuggy wrote, Entry 19, Slate, the 5th year. Good God, Ubi Govos has been moving slow as molasses for the last couple of days. Looking outside, there's absolutely nothing there, though living on a damn glacier does that, including the holistic spawn, so maybe we're doing better than we thought? In any case, unless something interesting happens soon, I don't think I'll be needing this. Entry 2, Fellsite, the 5th year. You know, working in the mines isn't honestly as bad as I thought. I used to think that it was work for lunatics and beasts of burden, but after offering to do the job, read they were out of competent dwarves, I found that it was actually a bit amusing. Granted, it was kind of something in there. It was kind of horny in there? No. Granted, it was kind of in there, and some of the lava was my journal, and I had to my coat. My coat. How can I go about not wearing? Isn't all too dreary. I got some practice in with the other dwarves. Kind of a down to earth experience for me. Callisti and Goose Creek definitely had some interesting stories. Something about a girl with a broom. What a laugh. Yeah, in post production, I'll probably have to put like static noises in post production there. Definitely not sensor bleeps, but something like wrinkling pages sound effects or static from a TV or something. Yeah. It dawns on me that I shouldn't be writing in my journal while on the job. It seems that everyone's doing it now, and maybe easing up on the writing might set a better example, especially for those lazier dwarves. I'm trying to help run a colony here. Entry 1, Hematite, the 5th year. It's been too quiet around here. Drakenel wrote, From the Journal of Drakenel, Furnace Operator. Steel. It's valuable, hard, and quite a chore to make, but someone has to do it, yeah? The other dwarves don't always make it easy for me, though. Half the time I have to go out and get the materials myself when someone decides that making crafts to trade to a caravan that will never fucking make it to the depot. Speaking of depots, we suddenly got sand raiders that attacked the elven caravan in a glacier. Why they were all the way out here, I don't know. I was just hauling more materials back to the furnace before apparently people had better things to do than when this Jazzimus prick yells at them to go and alert the military. Do I look like their fucking manager? I threw the flux stone at his feet and went off to do it anyway. Although, when I got there, they were all content with staying in the barracks, fighting, eating, and fucking each other. Only that Luigi's discount chick left when I told them that we had frickin' sand raiders at our door. I realized that it was for these pricks that I was making the steel for. It's these self-important asswipes that were certain that whatever they were doing was more important than defending their homes. I didn't even have an insult to shout at them. I just sighed and went back to my furnace. I hate my job. The White Crane wrote, except from the Journal of Tathelficod, the White Crane Master Jeweler. 3rd of Fellsite, 142. This is an outrage. I, the creator of Incel Codish Inselod kish rumad aknun. This is an outrage. I, the creator of Inselid Kish Rumad Aknun, denigrated to furnace operation? My nimble fingers will be blistered and hardened by the constant labor, and my keen eyes blinded by the gouts of scalding steam. Who does this Jazzimus think he is, to keep me from my art? He shall pay. By Armak, he shall pay. Ninth of Felsight, 142. Curse that so-called overseer. Sirocco Larol has... Larerol. Curse that so-called overseer. Sirocco Larerol has wrought a most marvelous obsidian quern. While I am not sure how wise it was to put cedarwood spikes all over it, I cannot deny its beauty. If I cannot return to my gemcraft, I shall be left behind, and my status in the art world will be ruined. I must plot, scheme. Yes. I think I vaguely heard of the Resident Evil stuff. Isn't someone basically cosplaying as Wesker? Chris. My Wesker voice isn't very good, Chris. No, I don't think I could keep that up for a whole chapter, Chris. Ouroboros. Syrupleaf, Chapter 5, Part 4. The Bone Collectors. 5th of Hematite, 142. Our bone carvers have carved all of the bones we have available. I request that Squaw, Screaming Idiot, and Recursive head outdoors to gather bones from the scenes of the previous battles and bring them into the fortress. For their safety, they are accompanied by the ranger Idea Keeper and the wrestler Lackloss. Squaw's pet war dog, Fath Babacost, follows them outside. The snowstorm has calmed down for the moment. I climb to the vantage point at the top of the mountain to observe. As Skaw gathers bones from the site of the elven caravan's ambush, I see something leap at him from the shadows. It appears to be a Sand Raider swordsman. I yell to alert Lackloss and Idea Keeper as Skaw's war dog bravely leaps at the raider to save his master. The dog bites at the raider's shield arm and latches on. Grunting in pain, the raider runs the dog through with his sword. The dog whimpers meekly and slides off the sword onto the ground, staining the snow red with blood. Skaw's expression changes from one of confusion to one of utter despair mingled with rage. Completely unarmed, he charges at the swordsman, who smirks and holds his sword at the ready. At that very moment, Lackloss and Idea Keeper crest a nearby snowbank and sprint towards the battle. Seeing the two well-armed and armored dwarves, the raider turns and flees into the trackless snow. Skaw gives chase for a time, but another snowstorm whips up suddenly, causing him to lose the trail. Skaw, the legendary carpenter, sinks into a deep depression, having lost his beloved pet. He continues to perform his duties admirably, but his heart is obviously no longer in it. 8th of Hematite, 142. As Recursive collects a pile of troglodyte bones near the crevasse, a Batman swoops out from the chasm to threaten him. Fortunately, Idea Keeper is standing nearby with her crossbow, and she peppers the creature with bolts, quickly ending that particular threat. Almost all of the outdoor bones have been collected by now. Screaming Idiot, guarded by Idea Keeper, is out collecting the last few bones from a couple of Batman corpses. This should provide enough material for our bone carvers for the remainder of the calendar year. As Screaming Idiot tosses the bones and skulls into a rope-reed sack, Idea Keeper sees a Sand Raider wrestler leap at her in ambush from behind a snowbank. She calmly fires a crossbow bolt into the raider's right leg, crippling him. She doesn't see the other ambusher, a Sand Raider axeman, creeping up from her behind. She does not see the other ambusher, a Sand Raider axeman, creeping up on her from behind. Ah, hello, Taco Mage. Wonderful to have you here. It's no wonder that you caught this one live. Is that an unusual hour for me? I usually either so late it's early or so early it's late. And it's a long one. We've been going for like an hour now already. Wonderful to have you here. Screaming Idiot yells at Idea to look behind her. She swivels around just in time to see the Sand Raider's axe descending upon her head. Grinning, the Raider Axeman charges at Screaming Idiot, who flees for the fortress gates. Hearing the commotion, the elite wrestler Lackloss charges out of the gatehouse to intercept the invader. Lackloss stuns the Raider with a punch to the face, his mailed gauntlet shattering the Raider's nose. The Raider Axeman's face contorts with rage and pain. Lackloss follows this with a brutal roundhouse kick to the midsection. The Axeman is sent flying a few yards away, but is able to quickly roll to his feet and flee into the snow. Lackloss gives chase, but in his heavy plate mail he's unable to catch up to the lightly armored Sand Raider. Idea Keeper's death will have to go unavenged. 12th of Hematite, 142. The dwarves of Syrupleaf solemnly gather in the crypt for Idea Keeper's funeral, with full dwarven military honors. Her body borne by pallbearers the Deadly Hume, Skullbuggy, Goose-Krieg, A124, and Kennel, and flocks of mice. Borne by pallbearers the Deadly Hume, Skullbuggy, Goose-Krieg, A124, Kennel, and flocks of mice. As Bob III gives the eulogy, my mind begins to wander. There still has been no sign of the fabled spawn. I confess that I'm beginning to question the veracity of these stories. The terrible snowstorms here impede the vision of even the best of dwarves. Woolly mammoths can certainly appear to be terrifying beasts when seen from a great distance. It's likely that Sasquatches wander these regions as well. The fact remains that no dwarf has seen one of these spawn close up. The fact remains that no dwarf has seen one of those spawn up close and lived to tell about it. I do believe that the very real threat of more ambushes from these Sand Raiders is a greater danger than some mythical undead beings at this time. I do not openly speak of my suspicions, but I order our scouts and hunters all to be outfitted in full plate armor, and request that the guards at the gate run regular patrols outside of the fortress's entrance. 64-bit Robot wrote, date unknown, year 142, log of 64-bit Robot Captain of the Guard. I've been hearing a lot of stories around. Apparently there have been many ambushes by creatures known as Sand Raiders, the death of an elven caravan and a dwarf of our own, and a kidnapping as well. This news distresses me. I know not where these ambushes come from, but I wish I'd left our military on patrol of the trade route. I took them off before our new overseer arrived. This was a mistake, it seems. Oh well, nothing we can do about it. The loss of Idea Keeper worries me. She was a good hunter, able to bring in woolly mammoths without problem, and able to take care of most Batmen that would attack her. I mean no blame on the current overseer, but there was not a single death under my rule, though perhaps it is just fate. I, however, lie useless here in bed, unable to properly do anything of use to the fort, and I'm not even in my own bedroom. Orange Soda wrote, from the diary of Stonecrafter Orange Soda, I made a mug! Hell yeah! Screaming Idiot wrote, from the writings of Pump Operator Screaming Idiot, Operator of Pumps. Entry 47, no respect for a professional. Oh, bloody hells, this new overseer's gonna be the death of all of us by Armic's bloody beard. I'm a pump operator, one of the best, and he sends me out to go and collect bones? What sort of sick fuck is he? If I didn't know better, I'd say he was trying to get me and the lads killed out there. I keep hearing Idea's screams in me head. She was just a mush-minded swords girl, but she died defending me life. How am I supposed to repay her? I'm a dwarf what pays back his debts, but words fail me. I'm not a brave dwarf, not a fighter. I'm a technicalician, an artisan of the pumps, and an operation of which... I'm a technicalician, an artisan of the pumps and the operation of which. Beyond's calloused as tough as they are, they're built for pulling levers and tightening bolts. And by Armac's fairy nutset, it's bleeding cold out there. And by Armak's fiery nutsack, it's bleeding cold out there. The winds cut to the marrow, and the chill permeates your heart till you feel nothing let. It's no wonder the spawn laugh at our swords and axes. They're numb from the cold, and no pain simple steel can inflict can compare to the agony of their lives. Why'd I leave for this place? Ain't nothing here but pain and death and more cold and more death. I'm a pump operator. I operate the pumps. I ain't no fighter, and I ain't no bone collector. I need a drink. Yeah, I think that Screaming Idiot meant to write Scottish, but it reads more as Irish, I think. Most of my Celtic accents are terrible anyway. Most of my accents are terrible anyway. Oh well. Zoe posted, I forget what Screaming Idiot's profession is, but he needs to be made a squad leader and put on the front lines of the next battle. The Knights of Flames is an awesome enough name to overcome any lack of skill. Also, requesting more diary entries from Sirocco, please. I am an Armagh damned I am an Armagh damned pump operator, you bleeding fool, not some sponge-beard sword boy. A genius of me skill doesn't deserve to be put in the way of raiders. A genius of me skill doesn't deserve to be... A genius of me skill doesn't deserve to put his eye in the way of raiders and then punch it in the frightening holistic spawn. Sirocco wrote, The Journal of Sirocco. Second entry. Hey, diary. It's a sad day today. We lost Idea Kipper, I think that's how you spell it, to an uncivilized sand raider. I think he must have been lost or something, because there's no sand for miles around here, just cold ice. Maybe he confused deserts with desserts? I should write that down. Wait, I already did. Silly me. Anyway, it's been quite the downer, but I always try to look on the bright side of things, so to cheer everyone up, I suggested that we have an essay competition. Simple 2,000 words dissertation on what everyone's favorite things were about Syrupleaf would be so fun to read and share, don't you think? I'm afraid to say it had a rather frosty, I'm on a roll today, diary, reception, and I had to disqualify the only entrant for extremely naughty language. The imagery was bold and striking, but it was just simply too ghastly to be left on stone. So I smoothed it over the first opportunity I had and replaced it with a really nice picture of a square instead. Although I think it might actually have been a rectangle. Shh. After all the fuss had died down, I thought I'd go pay 64-bit Robot a visit and read him some of the poems I'd written about Syrupleaf. He threatened to throw me in jail after the first one. He's such a kidder. After I was halfway through my fifth poem, he did something really odd, diary. He punched himself in the face and knocked himself out cold. I felt so sad that he'd have to do something like that just to get some kip. The pain from his injuries must be terrible. Terrible. I knew that I had to do something to get that frowny upside downy. He didn't have a cast, so I engraved a heartwarming message onto the frozen tip of his beard. We've all got them now. They're so funny. Instead, once he'd fallen asleep, just a little smiles and rainbows, champ. We're all counting on you to keep his spirits up. I'm afraid that's all I got room for today, diary. I'll be sure to let you know if I get eaten by holistic spawn monsters. I'll see you later. Dear frickin' Lord, maybe I should get some beer after all. Skullbuggy wrote, Entry, 5th of Hematite, the 5th year. The Sand Raiders attacked again. I can't help but feel that maybe it's not the best idea to go outside anymore. I took it up with Jazzimus and suggested he keep the fortress on lockdown. He assures me the problem, while present, isn't a dire one. After all, we only lost one of our dogs. Skaw seems to have lost much more, though, and I can't rightly berate him for that. His woodwork, though, is becoming a bit lackluster, and I can't help but hope he shapes up soon. Sympathy, while nice to have, isn't important, especially when trying to help oversee a colony. Entry, Ninth of Hematite, the 5th year. I keep hearing those damn sand raiders outside yelping at us from outside. It's days like this that have me pining for the days when Holistic Spawn would try and batter our doors down. P.S. I take it back. At least these things don't keep me up at night. Entry, 12th of Hematite, the 5th year. I laid Idea Keeper to rest today. It was definitely eye-opening, if not tragic and sobering. I realized today that I was wrong about those sand raiders. They were a brutal kind, and completely merciless. I heard from Screaming Idiot, who was visibly shaken upon returning to our colony, that they approached her from behind, and I'd rather not continue describing it. Even now, when I think about it, I start to get a bit queasy. Screaming Idiot couldn't sleep that night. I heard him at the post, scrawling in a notebook and making sure the pumps were operating. He'd taken with him a keg of ale. Can't say I blame the poor fellow. All of Udigovos, it seems, is now aware of the danger at hand. We need to lock down the colony, otherwise this will continue. I don't want to see this great colony die in its prime, especially not to a bunch of damned sand raiders. Entry, Hematite, 15th of the 5th year. Oh, I should say, Skullbuggy wrote. Entry, Hematite, 15th of the 5th year. Some bald-faced humans came today, offering us food, wood, and sweet, sweet alcohol. Of course, it's worth it for all of our fine crafts. I can't say I'm handy with a loom, but I know several who are. It appears they're going to be staying here a bit. Ooh boy. This will be interesting. Hematite, 24th. I thought I smelled sulfur today. I think somebody just passed wind, although it pays to be cautious. 25th of Malachite, 5th year. My god, we've struck gold. What a nice bit of serendipity on our part, eh? It seems that Jazzimus has ordered a bricklayer to pave the entry corridor with gold. I thought we'd have used it for something more useful, but that's just me, being the economic type. Seems like things are looking up. 20th of Galena, the 5th year. I smelled brimstone again. Alright, I am going to be right back. I need to go refill my drink, everyone. See you in just a moment. All right, I hath returned. Yeah. Well, I've I used to play Dwarf Fortress a whole lot, but I'd probably be kind of lost if I tried and played it now. I think I'm waiting for the Steam version to come out before I get playing Dwarf Fortress anymore again. Hopefully the Steam version will be a bit like easier to handle, you know? Get more new people into the game. All right, let's see here. Get myself resituated again. Syrupleaf, Chapter 5, Part 5, The Calm Before the Storm. 15th of Hematite, 142. A human merchant caravan has arrived. Hopefully, this will give us the opportunity to replenish our wood stockpiles, as we're completely dependent upon trade for that particular resource in this climate. I order all idle dwarves to bring the crafts of Bobatron, Gerblin, Orange Soda, Koorish, and Manuel Calavera to the trade depot. Well, this is rather embarrassing. There's a row of levers just between the main chamber and the chasm, but I don't know which one lowers the east drawbridge to the trade depot. Although I suppose I could try every one of the levers. I've heard far too many stories of fortresses reaching an untimely end because of a single unlabeled switch that was holding back a magma gate. I have no choice but to awaken the previous overseer, 64-bit robot, and ask his assistance. He limps out of bed and points out the proper switch. Although the switch is labeled as bridge number 4, I ordered its label changed to something a bit more obvious for future reference. The human caravan pulls into the trade depot, and we trade crafts of rock, bone, and cave spider silk for all the wood, alcohol, and food that they have to sell. Bob the Third and I meet with the human liaison to discuss a trade agreement for the next year. What would you like for us to bring next year? Asked the liaison. As much wood, alcohol, meat, and fish as your caravan can carry, I reply. Bring some metal bars as well. Bismuth bronze in particular, adds Bob the Third. I begin to wonder about this dwarf and his fetish for this particularly archaic metal, but I keep my mouth shut and nod my head in agreement. Bob the Third is Bob the Third is an overwhelmingly popular mayor at Syrupleaf, having been re-elected in a landslide just a few days ago, and he's also the best miner that we have. It would be best for the fortress to keep him happy. Will there be anything else? Asked the liaison. Any pets, perhaps? Dogs? Kittens? No, thank you, I chuckle. War horses? No, I don't think that. Wait, what? You have war horses? I sputter. Yeah, we do. We would be happy to sell you a few if you'd like. Bob the Third and I look at each other incredulously. Yes. Yes, I think we would like some war horses, I reply. 11th of Malachite, 142. As the human caravan rides off into the snow, I proudly look at our stockpiles. Not only do we have an ample supply of wood now, but we also have a wide selection of different foods and drinks. During the previous month, many dwarves had complained that they were tired of having nothing but dwarven wine to drink. I hope that our new variety of spirits will raise the spirits of our dwarves. But what of our metal stockpiles, I wonder? It is time that I check in at the furnaces to see for myself. I visit the bustling furnace operations. Frederick, the dungeon master, is doing an outstanding job of overseeing the production of steel, gold, and copper. I walk over to congratulate him. Frederick, this is excellent. With you in charge of furnace operations, I'm free to focus on other things. Well, I'm doing the best that I can, says Frederick uncomfortably. I admit that it's somewhat difficult, though, seeing as how I don't have a proper office or desk to deal with the paperwork. For that matter, I don't have most of what I require for my role as a dungeon master either, but I'm able to make do. I flush with embarrassment as I realize the implications of this. I've not seen to it that my own second-in-command has what he needs, and Frederick has not taken it upon himself to request the metalworkers to work on the things he requires. He's truly put the needs of the fortress before his own. I immediately order the metalsmith I'm Lemon to begin working on furnishings for Frederick, which will be made of solid gold. This seems to improve Frederick's mood immensely. 25th of Malachite, 142. News has reached me that our miners have struck another vein of gold beneath the mountain. Our military has stepped up its patrols of the surrounding area, but there have not been any threats for quite some time. Dare I say that the fortunes of Syrupleaf might have turned around? I ordered the entry corridor of the fortress to be paved with gold, knowing that such a display of our wealth is likely to keep the dwarves happy. Vox Nihili takes a break from working on steel armor in order to produce the golden bricks to pave the entryway. Our military is attacked for the first time in almost 2 months, as Lackloss is attacked by a Batman while on patrol in the caldera just above the volcanic magma pipe. Lackloss easily dispatches the creature with his bare hands. Man, I feel bad for Nemo getting punked by these things. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, huh? Slaughtered by Dingo. No, Dingo ate me goblin. Aye. That's wonderful. I think my favorite Dwarf Fortress story is probably that one, the one elf in all of creation who was actually a badass. The I forget his name, but the elf who was wandering around in like gold underpants, being a crazy badass all over the place, who eventually got elected as king of the dwarves. 16th of Galena, 142. Vox Nihili completes a stretch of the Golden Road connecting the gatehouse to the main chamber. The situation continues to improve here. The dwarves are as happy as I have seen them since I first arrived. Even Skaw has recently come out of his depression to organize a party. 30th of Galena, 142. Just before autumn arrives, 64-bit Robot's leg, although still tender, has healed enough for him to leave his bed. A celebration is thrown to honor the former overseer. As the summer draws to a close, it seems as though nothing can go wrong here at Syrupleaf. There are still no signs of those fictional spawn creatures, I think to myself with a chuckle. Why were we all so afraid? Yeah. If I recall, didn't that Elven King go on to he hated his own kind and he went to pursue a genocide against the elves? That guy was amazing. I'll try and look it up for you, Villainous. I'll like once the stream is complete, I'll look it up and I'll pin a comment of it in this in the comments of this video. Oh. Kakame a Metanade or something like that. Yeah. Syrupleaf, Chapter 5, Part 6. The Nightmare Begins. 2nd of Limestone, 142. The dwarves of Syrupleaf are beginning to relax. I'm tempted to do the same, but I know that the Sand Raiders could strike again at any time. Armok only knows why they would have ever made the journey here in the first place. Vox Nihili believes that they have heard the tales of the legendary golden boot he created several years ago, and wish to steal it. I suppose that's as good a reason as any. Regardless, I believe that it is always better to be proactive rather than reactive. So I order 3 more dwarves, Spermy Smurf, Swat Jester, and Fearos, to be recruited into the military. They're outfitted with the Humanity's steel warhammers and Vox Nihili's steel full-plate armor. Spermy Smurf is always a name that trips me every time I read it. I wonder if he grew up to be Papa Smurf simply because everyone called him Daddy. I'm accosted in the central chamber by a dwarf that I don't recognize. Jazzimus, I'm going to need a leatherworks. Jazzimus, I'm going to need a leatherworks to be constructed as soon as possible. Give the order to make it happen, he demands. And just who are you? I ask. I'm Mystical Haberdasher, he replies. Why do you need a leatherworks? Why do you need a leatherworks? To perform some mystical haberdashery, you idiot, he cackles gleefully. Well, to perform some mystical haberdashery, you idiot, he clacked. God. To perform some mystical haberdashery, you idiot, he cackles gleefully. I roll my eyes. Still, something good might come of this dwarf's sudden inspiration, so I give the order for the leatherworks to be constructed. Once the structure is complete, Mystical Haberdasher claims the workshop for himself. This had better be good. 12th of Limestone, 142. Glory to Armagh! In the distance I can see a dwarven caravan from the mountain homes approaches our fortress. Although we are not in an immediate need of any particular resource, we can always use more wood, food, and alcohol. I order the trade depot drawbridge to be opened. Later that day, Mystical Haberdasher begins work on his construction. 13th of Limestone, 142. The first of the dwarven wagons rolls into the trade depot. I permit myself a smile, which quickly widens into a broad grin. We have all the resources we need here, and we will soon be purchasing more of that which is scarce. Our entryway is being paved with gold at this very moment. Our military patrols have complete control of the situation outside. I stop for a moment to consider my appreciation for the soldiers patrolling outside Syrupleaf, who have made the area around the fortress safe in spite of the bitter cold. I look up. One of these patrolling soldiers, Syntax, is sprinting for the city gates right now. His face is deathly pale. Jazzimus, call everyone inside. Shut the gates, he screams. What? What is it? A vile force of darkness has arrived. The spawn! I quickly climb to the top of the hill above the gatehouse and survey the area. To the northwest, I can see some shapes in the distance. They're closing in on the fortress rapidly. I ring the fortress alarm bell. As the last of the military patrols scramble into the gatehouse, I sprint back into the gatehouse myself and look to the trade depot to the east. The rear guards of the dwarven caravan are standing there, confused, on the bridge east of the depot. I scream at them to hurry across the bridge. As they scramble into the trade depot, 64-bit robot pulls a couple of... I scream at them to hurry across the bridge. As they scramble into the trade depot, 64-bit robot pulls a couple of switches, retracting the bridge to the east of the depot and raising the two gatehouse drawbridges. The gatehouse and trade depot are now sealed off. Skullbuggy and I climb to the top of the trade depot to survey the area. The snowstorms have died down, and we have a clear view from this vantage point. Approaching from the northwest, we see no less than 17 large humanoid shapes. As they get closer, I can see that they have stumpy claws for hands and a horrible, toothy, vertical mouth, or something like a mouth, between two misshapen eyes. One of them is much larger than the rest. As they approach the fortress, the creatures ignore a nearby woolly mammoth, which rumbles away from them as fast as it can in terror. The leader of these creatures is clearly a couple of feet taller than the fleeing mammoth. Dear Armagh, the thing must be 16 or 17 feet tall. Those are the spawn? I ask Skullbuggy. Yes, he spits out in terror. And the large one is that holistic detective? I don't know. Skullbuggy wrote, I woke up and I still smell brimstone. It's getting so much worse and I can't sleep. I don't like where this is going. I'm going to try to sleep. 13th of Lime, the 5th year. I smell brimstone really bad now, and I think something bad is happening. To Sid wrote, 15th of Hematite, 142. Word around the fortress this fine morn is that of a human caravan coming. I pray to Armagh nothing is here to greet them this time. I've been keeping to myself of late. It's hard here because there's little for me to do at the time. I know my time will come, and I can occupy my time with more booze and food. What has felt like only days has been weeks. How have I missed that How I have missed that feeling. 25th of Hematite, 142. Skullbuggy came to me yesterday and asked if I could smell anything. Other than my own brew-ridden gas, I couldn't. Poor dwarf is getting more and more stressed as the weeks go on. We discovered a vein of gold today, which has made everybody a little happier. I'm starting to feel like it wasn't in vain coming here. Syrupleaf is really looking up. It's still cold, as it always is, and always will be, but we've not been attacked of late, which is nice. The loss of a few dwarves a few weeks prior shook us all, and the procession after was a bit too much for some of us to handle, but keeps you grounded, you know? 13th of Limestone. Fortress is quiet this morning. Don't know why. 13th of Limestone, entry number 2. Hell on earth, they are here. The spawn is here. I thought they were joking. If this is to be the last time I update this cursed book, then I pray that the place I head is better than here. To whomever reads this, my family are in Hawkjester Fortress near Tackengard. Send them my love. Make sure they read this. Recursive wrote, Diary, first entry, 8th of Hematite, 142. Batman. Why did it have to be Batman? If it weren't for that quick-shooting crossbow woman, we'd be dead right now. If it weren't for that quick-shooting crossbow woman, we'd be taken right now. Taken like our sister back in the old country. Taken to a dark, dank, guano-filled cave to die horribly. I can't imagine anything worse. Maybe I should aspire to a better profession than a collector of bones and garbage. But one does have to start somewhere, doesn't one? Swatchester wrote, Diary of Swatchester. You know, it wasn't so bad when I was given the choice of life in prison at Headshoots, which I was a founding dwarf of, or being sent to this holistic spawn-forsaken glacier. I don't mind the cold. I'm a carpenter, it doesn't affect me. As long as the idiots that run this place can bring me wood, I'll make life better around here for everyone. At least it won't be so goddamn hot. And then the reckoning came. Some moron babbling about pumps and a gimp with a busted leg came up and broke the bad news to me. Swatchester, you've received a great honor. You gets to go to war. I stood, mouth agape. War? Fuck that. I'd put that part of my life behind me. I never again wanted to feel the weight of a hammer within my hands, striking anything but wood. Certainly not soft, quivering flesh, as I pounded it into a fine mist and reveled in the jelly-like remains of what used to be brains of goblin and dwarf alike. I was once the entity of death, a living hammer, and I could feel the bloodlust calling again. It must be done. It shall be done. I will again become war. That certainly doesn't bode badly. A dwarf directly from Headshoots, too. Wow. Syrupleaf, Chapter 5, Part 7, A Caravan Attacked. 13th of Limestone, 142. I turned to address Skullbuggy. You say that these creatures have besieged the fortress in the past. How did you deal with it then? We closed the city gates and waited for several months. Eventually the creatures would leave to search for other prey. Then that is what we shall do. Our dwarves are safe, and the merchant caravan is now safe as well. We'll wait the creatures out. As I say this, another half-dozen merchants clamber over the crest of a snowbank, their pack mules carrying bins of items behind them. The drawbridge is already up. These merchants have arrived too late. as the holistic spawn continued to close in on the fortress. Shit. Against my better judgment, I yelled towards the gatehouse for 64-bit robot to open the eastern drawbridge, hoping that this will allow the last of the merchants to reach safety. He nods and rushes into the fortress. A dwarven merchant stands in front of the raised drawbridge on the far end of the moat, looking across at his fellows in the trade depot. I scream to the merchant to move out of the way. He does not understand what I'm saying before it's too late, and the poor dwarf is squashed to jelly beneath the drawbridge. I turn and look to the south. At least 30 more of the spawn are approaching in the distance from this direction. Skullbuggy and I scramble down from atop the trade depot and rush back into the gatehouse. A merchant guard fires a crossbow at the advancing horde. One of the creatures is hit but is barely slowed. The other 50 continue to advance towards the depot at full speed. A swords dwarf in the merchant guard valiantly engages several of the spawn in order to give his fellow merchants time to reach the depot. He wounds a couple of the creatures and slows their advance, but is hopelessly outnumbered. As the swords dwarf falls, another merchant guard, an axe dwarf, charges down the ramp to buy time for the remaining merchants. One of the beasts rips out his throat, and he collapses, wheezing and bleeding to death. The remaining merchant guards, including a mace dwarf, a marks dwarf, and an axe dwarf, have moved to the middle of the eastern bridge to hold off the advancing horde as the last of the merchants scurry into the trade depot. I realize that I now cannot retract the eastern drawbridge without sending these warriors to their death. One of the spawn reaches the bridge, crushing the lower body of the marks dwarf in its great claw. I watch the carnage from inside the gatehouse, ready to give 64-bit robot the order to retract the inner bridge if necessary. Ready to give 64-bit robot the order to retract the inner bridge if necessary to protect the fortress, even though such an action would leave the merchant caravan to the mercies of the spawn. Nearby, Luigi's Discount, Lackloss, and Fellblade stand guard at the entrance of the fortress, looking on in despair. "Stand your ground, soldiers," I order them. Lackloss shakes his head. "We can't stand by and watch our brothers from the mountain home be slaughtered like this," he says. The 3 other soldiers nod to each other and rush towards the trade depot. Bobbin Threadbare wrote, "It is with trepidation that I write these final words, final proof of my insanity, or a witness's account of the doom of all dwarven kind. Though my new neighbors have been forthcoming on most every topic, from the hardships of developing fertile ground to the sad deaths brought about by Batmen and sand raiders, there was one subject, spoken only in hesitant whispers and broken thoughts, which refused to resolve themselves into a coherent narrative. Before my own experience, I knew only that they had come, and even our most stalwart warriors had refused to do more than hide behind hastily erected walls. But some months after my arrival, at a time when I had grown accustomed to new hardships and comforts both, I saw their arrival with my own eyes. They were putrid, disgusting masses, cast into a mockery of the dwarven form. Their gangrenous pallor shivered my very soul as I heard their cries, a horrid ululation that sounded not so much as a dwarf as a host of crows. No, the very host of hell itself came to collect its dues. In the place of their hands, great, chitinous protrusions of a deadly sharpness grew full beyond the length of their bodies, so that their arms were dragged behind them as they ran, or else flailed about over their heads. Each spike seemed to cry for a dwarven head to be run through its length. A great rent passed down the length of their torsos, but far from hindering their survival, it appeared as if their former ribs had become as teeth, and the whole was a cavernous maw which could only hunger for one possible source of food. Even as I watched, aghast at their appearance, I could see the opening stretch wide and close, as though a more monstrous beast were hidden behind the creature, waiting to consume any victim so unfortunate as to fall behind. Even the legs of the beast were unnaturally long, allowing it to take great strides through the snow and quickly catch the poor souls caught outside when the creature arrived. Truly, I now understood why such beasts much ne- Truly, I now understood why such beasts must never be spoken of, lest the thought of their existence drive one to desperate acts. Even now, writing this account, my thoughts stray unnaturally far from the gems that make my livelihood. Sirocco wrote, the Journal of Sirocco, third entry. Hey, diary! What excitement! An army of monsters is at this very minute bearing down on the fortress walls. I suppose I should really be scared, but spice is the variety of life. That's what my mother always said. Plump helmet in the morning and coir leaves at night. They're good for what ails ya. I've seen what they can do and all, but I feel that if we could just stop the senseless killing, we would all be so much happier. Perhaps instead of cracking their skulls in two with our hammers, we could just run out to them and give them a symbolic tap. We could just run out to them and give them a symbolic tap on the nose. Do they have noses? I don't think so, actually. That sounds good. I'll have to suggest that to Jazzimus. So, yeah, these soulless creatures want to rip us all to shreds. It sucks, but what you gonna do? Not you, diary. You're just a wall. But, seriously, I think it'll turn out all right. Been surviving here 5 years after all. Besides, without all the little challenges in life, we would be such banal people, living banal little dwarf lives. Maybe, oh, yes, I will. I think I'll write a war poem to inspire our brave. I'm writing in my diary, jerk. I'll get ready in a minute. Oh, man, look what you made me engrave. I'm sorry, diary. Looks like the soldiers are going to fight the spawn at the depot. Such a bold move. I can feel my fingers trembling already. Desperate to engrave a spawn, making some kind of plaintive gesture. Supplication looks so good on stone. In other news, I asked Scaw to make me a flower press with one of his leftover logs, and to my surprise, he obliged. Hooray! I love all things verdant and natural, so it's a real shame I can't pursue my hobby here. Why, diary? Why? There's no flowers to press, of course. I felt kind of silly after Scaw had finished it, so I pressed some snow instead. It's nice, but it's just not the same. I love this place. Maybe I'll build a gazebo. Bye bye, diary. Dear Lord. Mm, yes. Take a drink after that one and wish it was booze. Lackloss wrote from the Journal of Lackloss, 13th of Limestone, 142. The spawn have returned. Why? Why did I ever agree to come to this Armagh forbidden place to begin with? Gold, they said. More gold than you could ever imagine would be at your fingertips. Drinks flow through fountains, and food lay rotting in quantities even the largest of fortresses could never consume. Lies. That's what I was told, and now I'm here, being told that the spawn have come. Enough is enough. It's time to take back this land. It's time to become a legend. It's time to end this. Yes, well, if I start drinking after reading through that, I'm not going to stop. And then the mush mouth I constantly have to struggle with is just going to get worse. Syrupleaf, Chapter 5, Part 8. The Siege of Syrupleaf. 13th of Limestone, 142. As the remaining caravan guards leave the depot and engage the creatures, Luigi's Discount, Lackloss, and Fellblade charge out of the gate. Another merchant guard, a swords dwarf, is quickly felled by one of the spawn. Lackloss is the first to arrive at the front line. The bridge acts as a choke point, preventing the spawn from approaching the fortress with their full numbers all at once. Luigi's Discount and Fellblade arrive a few seconds later. The two of them hold the bridge as Lackloss engages the largest of the spawn that are nearby. Lackloss grabs the creature by the left claw and twists its arm, then shatters a limb with a powerful strike. He follows this with a roundhouse kick to the spawn's lower body, knocking it off the bridge. The massive creature collides with the ground, but then slowly stands up again, badly injured, but not defeated. As more of the spawn scramble up the ramp, Luigi's Discount and Fellblade quickly find themselves surrounded. Fellblade smashes the foot of one of the creatures with her hammer, but two more of the creatures grab her body in their claws and attempt to pull the dwarf apart. Luigi's Discount swings her hammer into the side of one of them, knocking its body into the other and sending them both off the bridge to the ground below. Unfortunately, her action is too late to save Fellblade. Three more of the creatures, having just ripped apart the body of a dwarven merchant, turn to make their way towards the depot. Lackloss punches one of the spawn in the throat, causing it to stumble and double over as the others charge past them up the ramp. Luigi's Discount appears to be in a sort of martial trance as she swings her hammer back and forth at the spawn surrounding her. Another of the creatures is knocked off the ledge to fall to its death, and the chest cavity of another is caved in by a hammer blow. Luigi's Discount proceeds down the ramp to take on more of the spawn. Nearby, Lackloss sees the large spawn he had knocked off the bridge earlier and takes it to the ground with a diving tackle. The two of them grapple on the icy earth. Luigi's Discount stands atop a pile of several dead spawn. Three more of the creatures writhe on the ground near her, their arms and legs broken and mangled by hammer strikes. She ignores the crippled spawn and closes to engage the nearest uninjured one. At least 10 of the creatures have been struck down by our soldiers at this point. The bridge and depot area has nearly been secured now, save for a few badly injured spawns still fighting the caravan guards on the bridge. Another wave of a dozen spawn crests a nearby snowbank and charges, closing in on Luigi's Discount. At the rear of the group is a terrifying, 17-foot-tall behemoth itself, the spawn leader, its eyes burning with hatred. I turned to Skullbuggy, standing next to me in the safety of the gatehouse, watching the battle unfold. The two of them cannot hold off all these creatures by themselves. Assemble the rest of our champions from the barracks. Skullbuggy nods and sprints into the fortress. Luigi's Discount stands her ground, her hammer held high, as the second wave of spawn charge at her. Undaunted by their numbers, she smashes the leg of one of the creatures and shatters the arm of another. The rest of the group surrounds her, the spawn leader closing in behind them. Lackloss continues to grapple with the large spawn. He has broken both of the creature's arms and legs, but is beginning to tire. Luigi's Discount strikes down two more of the creatures which surround her, as yet a third wave begins to pour in from over the snowbank. Once again, she swings her mighty hammer, shattering the knee of the nearest spawn, which then falls forward, directly on top of her. Luigi's Discount is pinned to the ground, unable to move. The remaining spawn charge up the ramp towards the depot. The spawn leader shambles over up to the prone and pinned Luigi's Discount and crushes the helpless dwarf's head in one of its great claws. Exhausted, Lackloss finally breaks the neck of the spawn he'd been grappling, and the creature collapses in a heap. The joy of victory gives way to misery as Lackloss looks across the battlefield and sees his fallen comrade, Luigi's Discount. Lackloss charges at the spawn leader with a scream and grabs the left claw of the titanic creature. Twisting with all of his strength, he hears a few of the creature's tendons pop. The spawn leader emits a piercing, otherworldly shriek and grabs Lackloss's body with his other claw. With all of its might, it throws the dwarf's body against the side of the glacier. I turned to the depot bridge. The last of the caravan guards has fallen as well. Now unhindered, the spawn began to pour across the bridges. The merchants in the depot put up very little resistance and are swiftly crushed. I scream out an order for the drawbridges to be raised immediately before turning to flee into the fortress. I turned to look back over my shoulder. The drawbridges have been raised, but no fewer than a dozen of the creatures have already reached the gatehouse, including the terrible spawn leader itself. I continue to run down the golden paved entryway, the shrieks of the spawn echoing close behind me. The three remaining champions of Syrupleaf, Kennel, Royal W, and Holistic Detective, run past me in the opposite direction, their weapons drawn. Bobbin Threadbare wrote, "Though terrified as I was by their appearance, my more experienced companions were unsurprised by their Sorry, I think I hit my mic there. Though terrified as I was by their appearance, my more experienced companions were unsurprised by their Though terrified as I was by their appearance, my more experienced companions were unsurprised by their appearance on the slopes of the glacier. When I pressed them for greater information, they at last acquiesced, no longer afraid of the beast's wrath after their appearance has been made a certainty. They explained that these ravenous demons were the spawn of one holistic detective, a previously upstanding dwarf, reduced to a nightmarish caricature by the very fires of hell itself. However, their next bit of news chilled my very soul. This detective had been the dark champion of that dismal fortress, Headshoots. My father's brother had traveled to this location shortly before his disappearance, and now I knew why. Alas, it appeared as if my own fate was to be tied to his, slaughtered by the holistic spawn as my uncle had died by the original's hand. Grim as it was, however, this fortress had withstood the appearance of these beasts before, and now it seemed a series of bridges had been built to deny access to the monsters of the field. However, much to my surprise and dismay, the order was called to let the bridges stand down. Our nascent army refused to hide behind the defenses and wished to send the monsters back to the hell from whence they came. I and my fellow caravaneers found ourselves worked into a panic as the gibbering monstrosities made their way up the slope. But even through the haze of my own fear, I noted that the others who had withstood the previous sieges felt none of our terror, but merely took into their hands whatever makeshift weapons they could appropriate. At least one had a maddened gleam in his eye, a look telling of both sorrow and determination. The constant reappearance of them had taken its toll, and now my fellow dwarves had withstood enough. Either they or we would die here today, the look communicated. Death would come to the gate of Syrupleaf, for one force or the other. Goodness gracious, this is already up at an hour and 35 minutes of recorded audio. I think that this is probably going to have to be done in 2 or 3 parts at the very least in the edited version. Keep those to 40 minutes max or so. There are pretty good natural breakpoints in this, though. Yeah, I might have to do a 2-parter just on the reading simply because my voice is getting tired. Syrupleaf, Chapter 5, Part 9, The Battle for the Fortress. From the main chamber, I looked down the entrance hallway to survey the upcoming battle. The unfolding battle. Nearly 60 fellow dwarves stand behind me, holding mining picks, rocks, and whatever improvised weapons they're able to produce. Should our champions fall, it is here in the main chamber that the rest of us shall make our final stand. As Holistic Detective and Royal W emerged from the corridor into the gatehouse, they're met immediately by 3 spawn charging towards the corridor of the fortress interior. Kennel emerges behind the other 2 champions and makes her way to the front gate, where most of the creatures, including the spawn leader, are waiting. Fighting like a dwarf possessed, Kennel quickly fells two of the spawn with hammer strikes to the chest and smashes in the face of a third, the massive spawn leader, its head nearly reaching the ceiling of the great gatehouse, steps over the bodies of its minions to engage Kennel. Yeah, you're right, you're right. We have reached a natural breakpoint anyway. We kind of have a natural um a nice little cliffhanger here, starting the battle of the fortress. And you know me and cliffhangers. I need to enact my evilness upon all of you and have you wait upon them. Yes. Mwahaha. Good. Yes. Well, Villainous, thank you for joining us today. It's it's wonderful to see you. And yeah, you Taco Mage too. Oh boy. Well, if everyone is having to go to bed, then that decides it. Yep, yep, yep. So we are calling it on this episode of Let's Read Live. Next time we'll resume on part 36 here. Yes, yes. Yes, whoa knows. But as a consolation prize, I am going to take like a half an hour, 45-minute break, and at I'd say at around the next hour, 3 a.m. for me, I'll be starting up on some Journey Beyond the Abyss for anyone who's still awake. When do I want to stream this next? I don't really have a set schedule on this. My life situation right now is I'm kind of at the mercy of the rest of the household and the neighbors that make a whole lot of noise. So I have to find really odd hours when everyone's asleep where I can do this so that I don't have, I don't have a ton of background noise and people interrupting me and stuff like that. So I unfortunately can't give you solid predictions. But hopefully sometime later this week. Hopefully. Yeah. Usually it's around like 3 a.m. my time when I get started, which is it's 2:14 a.m. right now. All right. So, I will see you all again in a little bit, and in the meantime, thank you everyone for stopping by. Villainous Taco Mage, it's great to finally see you in a live stream. And yes, I hope you all enjoyed this content. I am going to go rest my voice, drink a ton of tea and honey, and I will see you in Journey Beyond the Abyss in just a little bit. Bye for now, everyone.